Howdy, guys, gals, and non binary pals. This is the Tales from the Waystone Summer Reading Program.
We are your hosts, Will and Phoenix. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the fifth installment of our series on Travis Baldree's Bookshops and Bonedust, Fresh Paint, Fresh Trouble, where we'll be reading chapters 25 through 30.
Alrighty. So before we begin, a couple of little housekeeping notes. We said at the end of the last episode, which understandably, if you're not listening to the credits every time that we say them, you may have missed. We, I think, are going to take our prerogative as the people doing this to just choose our next book instead of giving everybody the option to vote on it. It is one that has been voted on before and narrowly missed this time around, so we're going to go ahead and read the Monk and Robot books, the two of them together, to make up one little season of the summer reading program. So it's not like we're going to spend 7 episodes on just half the story.
And they're small books.
They are. So combined, it's not like we're going to be doing a whole lot of plot per episode, but what it will be is more contemplative. So I think that that's point of order number 1. Point of order number 2, we're going to be kind of talking about the very beginning of this set of chapters, and then Will and I went out to a bookshop recently, Barnes & Noble. So it's more like the mainstream chain instead of being a small local bookstore. But we picked up 2 books wrapped up in plain brown paper with a small description on them. And they actually did this where they have some tea and stickers and a bookmark with them. And I think that's just super enchanting. So I'm not sure if this was like curated by Barnes & Noble or curated by our Barnes & Noble or paid for. Because in the same way that end caps get paid for, like people, hi Cat, in the same way that people pay for choice placement of things at the grocery store, they do that at bookstores also. So who knows? We'll find out. But now we get into our Phoenix spouts out the same thing that they've been spouting out for over 150 episodes because they don't know how many actual episodes we actually have. Each week we'll be examining a section of Bookshops and Bonedust and figuring out what we can take from the text. We'll later realize we'll also take the time to focus on something that we have learned this week and share a recommended thing of the week and wrap things up with a notable quotable from the books that made us smile or laugh or think, which is probably going to happen before any of the other 2 things. Before we begin, let's get some disclaimers out of the way. First of all, we are in no way affiliated with Travis Baldree or his publisher Tor Books. Second of all, our discussions naturally assume that you have read through chapter 30. Oh my goodness, you updated this. Of Bookshops and Bonedust. If you haven't, please pause the podcast. I don't know. Please pause the podcast right now and go read it. Okay, we'll wait. You're back? Okay, cool. You've either read it or spoilers aren't a thing that you care about. Anyway, a word to our community. Please be kind to yourselves, one another, and the creators of the worlds that we love exploring. You know he has a boink or a lamb chop in his mouth.
Or both.
I don't think he'd have both.
True. His mouth isn't that big.
No. Meow wow. Meow wow. Meow. Meow.
Wow, wow.
Meow wow. Meow. Meow.
Meow.
It seemed like he was done. And then you started it up again. He'll be fine. Alrighty. We're going to start on chapter 25, which is starting off with Fern and Satchel wrapping up a whole bunch of books in plain brown paper with a small description on the front.
A very general description.
One where you wouldn't necessarily be able to pick out the book, like, if you didn't know what it was before you read it.
Kind of feels like the explain this badly.
Yeah. Except in the explain this badly, it's meant to be more of a turnoff.
True.
So as soon as Viv shows up, she's put to work writing out the descriptions, which may or may not be a great thing, as we will find out later. However, right now, because this has given us the perfect opportunity, we should open our books.
Yeah, all right. So let's start with our first one here. This one is a gothic, witchy, mysterious tale filled with buried family secrets.
And I want to take a photo of the cuteness that is it all wrapped up. Now, I gotta say, regardless of whether or not this was curated specifically by our local store or like corporatized, it's still really cute. And I would like to take some photos of the tea and the stickers, which are kind of taped in there. If anyone knows if this is all like corporatized or if this was like something that was potentially just our local store curating, that would be great. Please let us know on our Discord. All right, so we got a cute little tarot card bookmark. We got a couple of really cute stickers, including a little, looks like a cheetah in a coat and skirt and a scarf. Looks very cozy. And a book with some flowers and just stacks of books, which is very reminiscent of Fern's shop. And then a little stack of books with a bunch of flowers and birds and whatnot. And then the tea that we got in this one is organic matcha green tea. And so there will be pictures of this up on the Discord at some point. All right. Do you want to rip into it or do you want me to do it?
You're generally the one who is more gentle with that sort of thing, so that's probably the wiser course.
Okay, well, if you want it to be gentle, then I will make sure that it is gentle. Don't read anything into that, audience. Mind out of gutter. Canonically ace. With a dirty, dirty, dirty mind. Alrighty. So this one is called Wayward, a novel by Amelia Hart. So 2019, under the cover of darkness, Kate flees London for Wayward Cottage. Inherited from a great aunt she barely remembers. With its tumbling ivy and overgrown garden, the cottage is worlds away from the abusive partner who tormented Kate. But she begins to suspect that her great aunt had a secret, one that lurks in the bones of the cottage, hidden ever since the witch hunts of the 17th century. And then so it's got other timelines. The magic harnessed by the characters feels completely real in this captivating outing. And so it's listed as being a New York Times bestseller. I've never actually heard of it, but always worth a shot.
Yeah.
It also has that thing in the back that some books do that are like, this is for a reading circle or educational purposes.
Given the timeline of that, they're probably actually talking about King James in England, who was a Puritan who ascended the throne and did witch hunts in England before it became a thing that happened in Salem, Massachusetts.
Cool. Thank you very much. I really appreciate all of your lovely knowledge. I should have thought about that.
You're welcome.
All right. A book I wouldn't have picked up on my own, but sounds interesting. If anyone has read it, please let us know.
All right. Next one.
Next one. All right. This one comes with a little book tracker. This one's also got a pomegranate white tea, which seems right up my alley. And then a cute little thing of more stickers. Yeah, the little book tracker reading log is kind of cute. We have a similar flowers and books sticker. We have "You had me at trigger warning" sticker, which is interesting. And "I'd rather be reading," and "the fanfic was better," which I don't know how much I agree with that. But depends on what the fanfic is, because if it was for the book that I recently read, that like if somebody did fanfic of that and it was written half decently, it was better.
I don't know why you would, though.
I don't either, but it was an interesting premise. And I really, really wish that it had been an interesting book.
Fair.
That's going in the garbage. But I have friends who might actually agree with the fanfic was better one, so I'm going to let them have at those stickers. All right. So this one says, A Tale of Magic and Mystery, Triumph and Terror. You get to open this one.
All right, let's see what we got here. So this one is called Slewfoot, A Tale of Bewitchery by Brom. Yeah. Set in colonial New England, Slewfoot is a tale of magic and mystery, of triumph and terror, from acclaimed author and artist Brom. An ancient spirit awakens in a dark wood. The wild folk call him father, slayer, protector. The colonists call him Slewfoot, demon, devil. To Abithia, a recently widowed outcast, alone and vulnerable in her pious village, he is the only one she can turn to for help. Together they ignite a battle between pagan and Puritan, one that threatens to destroy the entire village, leaving nothing but ashes and bloodshed in its wake.
So we actually do have a connection to Brom. His kid went to college with me.
Yep. He has lots of interesting tales from his childhood. Those are his to tell.
But also, like, really smart, really talented, game design focused, and has a lot of really interesting ideas. And I hope that he's doing well.
Yes.
Again, not something I would have necessarily picked up, but I think that that's the charm and the kind of awesome thing about the books that are obscured like that.
Going back to Bookshops and Bonedust. So one of the things that I notice here is Fern's kind of going along back and forth along a pendulum in terms of hope and despair throughout this section. Right now, she's on the upswing. And I think this is a nice reminder that the journey of mental health is a day-to-day thing. There are going to be days where you feel like you can take on the world, and then there are days where you just feel utterly defeated.
That is incredibly true about, like, so much of my day-to-day. I'll probably talk about this a little bit more as we go along or later in this episode, but like our guitar lessons instead of recital, they do an actual concert where you play songs that you'd actually want to play and not stuff that is just like out of the lesson book. And so this time around, we're playing Sad But True, which is a Metallica song that both of us have been familiar with for a very long time. And so I can hear it in my head, and that's all great. And sometimes I'm like, yay, I'm doing great. And sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I am trash at this. And it almost never has anything to do with actual reality and just what my incredibly mean to me brain says.
Yeah, I noticed Fern's brain is pretty mean to her. And so when she has these times when it's working well for her, it's important to capitalize on that. And, I think one of the good things about her having Viv and now Satchel around is she's got people that are able to provide some extra perspective. When she's just all by herself, all she's got is her own brain.
And so, interesting point to be made here. Viv only sees from the outside because she cannot possibly see the inside of Fern's brain, inner workings, inner monologue, mental health, all that. And so, what she sees when the sale goes live, when everything is put out, wrapped up in front of the bookshop, is Fern getting her hopes up. And what Fern might be thinking is that she has to put on a positive spin, manifestation, something, so that she herself feels good and comfortable and right with this whole situation. Not that she's really expecting anything, but she's hopeful.
Yeah. And I think Viv is wise to keep her concerns to herself, knowing that Fern needs to have that kind of encouragement, whether it's realistic or not. Right now, because we know that Fern's brain is given to despair, sometimes perhaps she overcompensates for that. And she doesn't need Viv to be the downer.
Right. Like, you ever have a friend that's got just big ideas, says things that are very ambitious, says that they're going to, right now it's New Year's, so it's resolution time. So it's, what's one that happens all the time other than losing weight.
This is going to be the year that I accomplish something meaningful,
Or I'm going to finish all my works in progress and not buy more yarn until I get through all of my projects. This is not my resolution, and I am not going to do that. This is something that I see. Oh, no. I have a better one. You look so put upon, even though you're the one who has been encouraging me lately to buy more yarn. Shut up. Anyway, I know what one is. The people who go and say, I am going to crochet a temperature blanket starting from like day one, and it's going to be 365 rows, and it is going to be one color per day per the rest of the year. And I'm going to do this because it seems like just doing one row per day is going to be easy enough. And you don't
sure.
on their parade. You go, that looks really good. I love all the colors that you chose. This is really pretty. I love the stitch that you chose. This is also really awesome. And then you do not shame them when in March they're done. If they get to March. I mean, good on people for doing temperature blankets and actually succeeding. I really do like the temperature amigurumi snakes because they're a little more doable. You know what's even more doable? Pick a previous year that is significant to you and do one from a table you can look up.
It's very useful to have Wikipedia to handle that kind of thing.
Or like Farmer's Almanac.
Point is, though, Viv recognizes that she needs to ride this wave of hope while it lasts because it's oftentimes fleeting. Like, if Viv crushes this hope or if reality crushes this hope, it's not going to make it gentler or kinder. And the other thing is that when it comes to predictions, it will be right or it will be wrong, regardless of what you believe about it. But coming to premature beliefs about the accuracy of it does nobody any favors.
Also, you run the risk of seeming like you're unsupportive or uncaring. So I don't find it terribly helpful when I tell people my concerns about like learning a certain thing and they respond with, oh, you got this. But I think that is kinder than saying, you're right, maybe you shouldn't even try.
Well, and I think there's also something to the power of self-fulfilling prophecies. I believe that you are capable of doing this. Now, that doesn't mean that you will. It doesn't mean that you're guaranteed success. I'm simply stating that you have the ability to learn how to do this solo. And it's only if you have that belief that it becomes possible to actually do the solo. You don't learn to do the hard thing by believing that the hard thing is impossible. You can only do the hard thing if you believe that you can. And again, that's not enough to say that you will, but it's that necessary first step. Maybe you will, maybe you won't, but you certainly won't if you believe that you can't.
One other little thing to mention is that while Fern and Satchel are emptying out the shelves to make little packages of delightful reading material, they come across a book that doesn't belong in the bookshop.
And Satchel is incredibly antsy around it.
Specifically tells Fern not to open it because it belongs to a specific necromancer.
Vereen, the Pale, Satchel's master.
So what does Viv do?
She opens it.
And it's full of black void, not ink, void.
Yeah, each page is just completely black.
It's not printed black. It's not painted black. It's a hole obscured by black.
So Viv does the natural thing and decides to test what this actually means. So she has an idea. She takes a quill pen and then tries to see what happens if she puts it onto the page and finds that it goes through it. Like it's a portable hole, basically.
It's hundreds and hundreds of portable holes. I'm betting phylactery of some sort. Or, I mean, it could just be a book of holding. Regardless, Viv does the absolutely smart thing and shoves her whole hand. She thinks about it a little second and puts her non-dominant hand into the hole and feels stuff.
There's a line from The Expanse where Holden is later on debriefing after having done something rash, and he goes, I saw a button, so I pushed it. And then the response is, my God, you actually live your life like that. This explains so much.
Fair. So, first thing is squishy and repulsive. Second thing, it feels like coins that bite her fingers. And then third is a familiar greatsword that she pulls out of the book, alerting Vereen to the fact that somebody has her book and has taken something.
Well, we're on the clock now.
Yeah. I'm going to fast forward through some of the plotting, but I think some of the important things are that Viv does take the book to Iridia to have it be stored elsewhere, which is definitely not going to bite anyone in
The ash.
And then, book sale happens. A bunch of offloading of books happens, which is great. But then Fern does despair over the fact that why have I done this? I only earned half as much as what they're worth by doing this, and now everyone has reading material and they don't need to come and get more. Which I think she's catastrophizing because some people read through books and then want more. We have every couple of weeks gone back to a bookstore and bought you another Expanse novel.
Yeah, I think Fern is missing out on some of the things that this little sale actually did that brought value. So, for one, in addition to serving the passengers on the ship that had just come in, all of whom are going to want to have some reading material while they're at sea.
Because otherwise it's boring.
So there's that aspect. And she also makes some connections with members of the community. Even though she's lived in Merck for pretty much her entire life and her father's been a fixture there, she herself doesn't have a whole lot in the way of relationships to the other people in the town. And through this, she's starting to make some connections with people in a genuine fashion. So, in addition to Maylee, who she's become friends with, she's also starting to get to know Hylark. They're bonding over their love of reading, discovering that he is a big fan and an avid collector and enjoys talking about the same books that she does. She's forgetting that Pitts, who she hadn't really pegged as a reader, is actually quite a big fan of poetry and has found a lot of value in that. And, he didn't think of himself as a reader either. And he'll come back for more.
She's setting up repeat customers regardless of whether or not she thinks she is. But the other thing to note is that having half the profits in her hand that she would have otherwise had from books that are not selling does not mean that she would ever have the full amount of profits. Literally ever. Because they aren't selling.
Yeah, the purpose of sales is not to make full profit on it. It is to basically get people interested in what you've got so that they will come back when things are on full price.
In theory.
In theory, yes. But like if you're setting up something like this, which is sort of a mystery thing, this is sort of the intrigue people first. They get a deal on it. And then once they've been hooked on a thing, they will come back knowingly and they'll pay full price for it. It's also clearing out inventory because she's got a new shipment coming in and she has finite shelf space.
Exactly. So maybe she's not making a profit and maybe she's only making a small profit. Doesn't really specifically state either way. But it's money she didn't have yesterday. And I don't think that the wishful thinking amount of money versus the real amount of money, I don't think it does her any good to lament this imagined full price return.
Comparison is the thief of joy.
Yes, she at least made some money and is now able to do things like put it back into the bookshop to improve things. Now, before we get further on, there is one little bit that I do want to touch on. After having pulled the sword out of the book, genius move there, the only thing that's on Viv's mind is the sword. I haven't determined yet if this is magic sword, infect mind, only touch me, don't do anything else, obsess on me, like the sword that Grog gets in Legend of Vox Machina, right? Like we don't know if it's an enchanted thing that you might, but I don't know if it's an enchanted thing that is going to overtake Viv in any way, like a wisdom saving throw type thing or not. Or if it's, ooh, shiny, this helps me get back to the life that I want, and therefore it's almost forbidden and therefore I want it more, or I don't have time to devote to it, therefore I want it more. And that's something that has happened with me with certain pursuits. When I was working in the game design field at the last place that I worked, during Inktober, all I wanted to do was finish my drawings in the morning, not get to work, not do any of that. And I was mildly afraid that my boss would see that and go like, you're not supposed to be doing that. But I wanted to, and I was obsessive, and I wanted to get back to it, and I didn't want to stop until the thing was done. And so it's almost this like hyper fixation.
So I think there's a couple things going on there. So, one, this sword seems to fit her motion and frame perfectly. And when she's practicing with it, she feels really good. She feels strong and she feels powerful. And she also knows that given that she's basically rung the dinner bell for Vereen, it's only a matter of time here before the peaceful time in Merc comes to a close, and probably catastrophically. So that means she knows she has to be ready. So she's got that on her mind. And it also means that when she's out with Mei Li, that's kind of where her brain is at. And it makes it harder for her to spend that time in the moment. I know that we've sometimes had times where we're out on a date together and, I'm checking Slack or email because in that moment, like something's going on that I feel like I can contribute to, the things that I feel like I'm good at. And while that is a valid feeling to have, the actions that surround it can also be very hurtful to a partner.
I'd say also sometimes I get obsessive about creative endeavors to the point where all I'm doing is thinking about how to do something complicated, how to solve a puzzle that I've kind of got going on, rattling on in my head. Sometimes I'll have done this about video games. Sometimes I'll do this about books where I just am obsessed and want to go back to it, or like narratives like Critical Role, or do something else like where all I have in my head is please do the thing. And so it either makes you irritable, or me irritable specifically, to have to be taken away from it, or like obsess on it, or think about it all the time and then just ignore what's actually going on in my vicinity. And while sometimes it's okay to like really give into that, sometimes you're right, it can come across poorly to anyone that you're with. And in this case, it did with Mei Li.
I think it's worth noting because Mei Li knows that they have a finite amount of time together. And I mean, really, that's true of all relationships.
But there is an end point coming to a close soon.
And it also doesn't help that this endpoint is going to be precipitated by Vereen's arrival. And if it feels like Viv is a little too excited for it,
Or if it feels like Viv is squandering the time they have together, it can be very hurtful.
yeah, like we all have finite times with the people we love. And so it's important to make sure that we are giving ourselves the space to be present in that. And, I think that Viv at least has the sense to recognize how her distractedness and how her kind of one track minding, where she's not really paying attention to her partner, is hurting Mei Li.
And then she doesn't have an opportunity to be apologetic during the sale of all the books because there's a lot of activity, but she does think about it and she does want to make amends. And then, there's further on times where she's like, you know what, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be like that. She acknowledges what happened and doesn't try to make excuses for it, but she tries to make sure that going forward, she's not taking what's in front of her for granted.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing. She knows she can't fix what happened. Like, you can't unring that bell. You can't go back and say, oh, yeah, that didn't happen. You can't try and make an excuse for it because, I mean, it's just a thing that happens.
And it will ring hollow.
Yeah. The best you can do is acknowledge where the mistake happened and try and do better with the time you've got.
And on Mei Lee's part, she was hurt and she made it known, even though she didn't make it known as directly as maybe I would want from my partner. She didn't say it explicitly, but she did in her actions kind of retreat. But when she was no longer in that hurt space, she was able to come back to forgiveness and let's do better going forward, which I think is also a very mature way of handling that. I don't think we should be judged on our worst actions necessarily. I think, though, that we should be judged on how we address them when we're calm.
Yeah, like judging someone on a bad day is always tough. And I think we have a tendency to judge ourselves by who we are on our worst days, as if that is the real us and anything else is artifice. And I don't think that's true. Yes, who we are on our bad days is us. And so is who we are on our good days and on our medium days. That is also all us. And, ideally, us on our good days takes into account those times when the stuff we say and do on our bad days is not stuff we're proud of. And do we take the time to apologize? Do we take the time to reflect and look for ways to make things better, to make it so that the next time we find ourselves in that situation, we react better, that we behave better? All of that is part of what matters too. So seeing Viv and Mei Lee take the time to give themselves that kind of grace is important.
One other thing that does happen that I think is interesting, Viv addresses the fact that even though they've started making changes to the bookshop, it's not actually a pleasant place to stay for very long. There's a smell, there's chipped paint, there's broken bits of lamp. Things are looking run down. Things are looking and feeling very much like they're uncared for. And if that's the situation, it isn't inviting. And despite Fern's protestations, Viv is able to convince her to look into sprucing the place up, getting rid of the really smelly, icky rug, which, oh my, smells are one of those things that really are very off-putting. Back when I lived in Spokane, when I was looking to buy my first house, every place that I looked at had a very distinct smell of its own. Some of them were really bad, like dog urine. You could tell that the house was being flipped in the process of. Doesn't matter. I don't care. It was still bad. There was no way I was gonna live in that house. There's that smell. There's the smell of the well having been backed up, and there's some like sewer smells. Thank goodness though I turned on the faucet and like smelled the whole thing. Like that sulfur smell was just awful. There was one where there was so much perfumed like potpourri and air freshener and whatnot. Like the house itself was something that I would think is charming and interesting now. It had like multiple stairways to multiple levels. Like there were 5 levels or something like in this house, and none accessible from the same place.
But at the same time, if there's that much potpourri and air freshener, what is it covering up?
Right.
Like,
also, it was down the street from a cemetery. So like I wasn't.
Yeah, I guess looking at all of this, like really what Viv is doing here is helping Fern get out of a doom loop.
Yes.
So like Fern has 2 choices. I mean, there's really maybe more than that, but 2 groups of choices. There's one group where Fern does nothing. Fern accepts that, oh, no one's going to come in here and I don't have any money and this will never be a success. And all I can do is tread water until I die.
The always and never.
Yeah. Doom is inevitable, and the best I can do is forestall it.
But there's also the hopeful.
Right. Hope is
that thing with feathers.
Well, hope is the thing that is critical to being able to make something other than the prophecy of doom come true. So that means that Fern has to be willing to invest some of the proceeds from the sale into improving the space, because the space can be improved.
I'll say this. The two of us really have tendencies. You more than I do, because my limit is at a different spot than yours is, to just let things evolve into very much not taken care of.
Sometimes there's nothing so permanent as a temporary solution.
Right. And so the longer you let it go, the more challenging it is to fix. But sometimes the two of us just don't have the energy to constantly keep up with the upkeep. But to borrow a thing from Patrick Rothfuss, half a loaf is better than none. And so like sometimes run half the dishwasher full, right? Don't worry about having to fill it all the way up. Or run the dishwasher when it's full and there's still a sink full of dishes. It's okay. And then wait to do those dishes. You don't have to do all the laundry all at once. You don't have to always brush your teeth for 2 minutes. If you brush your teeth for like a minute and that's all you have energy for, that's all you had energy for. But at least you did something.
And there's also the fact that the thing you do doesn't have to be the thing, but it can be the thing that helps you get to the thing. Like, it doesn't have to solve all of your problems, but it can unlock future solutions. I'm thinking back to putting together your craft room. Like, we got it to about 75% last year, or actually the year before last now, because we're in 2026 now. And it kind of stayed in that 75% state for a while. And, we had a plastic bin full of tools in our bathroom.
For like a year, guys.
Yeah. Again, it was that permanent temporary solution. Then, over the course of this past summer, as we knew that you were getting ready to go in for a surgery, we decided that we were going to make a concerted push to get your craft room finished out, get everything straightened up in there and turn it into a usable space. And we actually did it. We did it one step at a time. Maybe we didn't always go as quickly as we had hoped, but we also sometimes went quicker than we'd hoped. And every day had ups and downs. Some days were more up, some were more down, but we kept going and we kept working on it. And before we knew it, we had a functioning room that you could actually spend time in and work in, that you felt comfortable in, that you felt calm and relaxed in. And, all of that was an absolute win.
But also, sometimes the answer is okay, there is so much stuff to do. I'm going to reorganize my dice. And that's a step.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to make sure that there is no food product left in a place that's kind of messy.
And by the time you're done with that, there's no more food product in that formerly messy place. It's better than it was.
And it might even motivate you to, just because of inertia,
keep going.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we need to continue on with our book.
Yes.
So, cue shopping montage. And then they do. They are able to bring in a rug that ties the room together. They are able to make progress on the painting, and the place looks more inviting and cozy. And honestly, like, for me, the best bookshops are the ones where you don't feel guilty testing out your book choice in a oversized, comfy chair.
Yeah. I think the icing on the cake is when Fern is finally able to get Satchel to take a load off and do something that he might consider pleasurable.
Which would be sitting in a chair, taking in a book or many.
I mean, because Satchel is able to speed read.
He just looks at a page and gets the whole bit of information off the page, and then next page, next page. It's like all the information just right there. I really wish sometimes that I could read like that, but also sometimes I am very thankful that I do slowly read. It's a relaxing thing, but also like I do crafts very slowly. And again, it's really the journey for me and not the destination. Now, one last little thing. Fern takes a step back. Are you going to say this in your okay. You know what? I'm not going to say it because I believe that Will is going to say it in just a little bit. But anyway, we have just this very lovely air of things are improving. We're on a good upswing in the interest curve. We have camaraderie. We have character growth. And we're just kind of at that moment where you're in the eye of the hurricane.
This is nice. What are all these dark clouds in every direction?
Right.
But it's fine here.
So at the end of the last chapter we covered, as everyone has exhaled, Satchel goes on alert. He thought he saw something. And Viv dashes out onto the boardwalk, smells something familiar, snow and frozen blood, which is interesting because at cold temperatures, things don't actually emit as much particles that would then be smellable. But I digress. And then it was gone, and Viv tried to convince herself that she'd just imagine it.
So, yeah, we're going to have a pretty good time on our next one. There's going to be a lot of action. That is time for notable quotables. And so I've got a couple. So first is going to be Pitt's Not Quite a Haiku. A worthy hand at patient rest, an endurance of moments. Contentment blossoms there. It's not a haiku at all. It's 7 syllables in each line. But this is also a fantasy world, so it doesn't have to abide by haiku things to have an homage to it.
Sometimes on Reddit, and I don't remember what communities I'm in that has the Sokka haiku bot, but it always tickles me. Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah.
Sokka tries to say a haiku, come up with a haiku, and doesn't quite. And so now there is a bot on Reddit that will take something that is the same amount of syllables that was in that little attempt to do a haiku and just mention.
So then we've also got Satchel, you have the soul of a poet. And then we have, it's possible I can see the appeal, but perhaps I should sample one of the moist ones.
Right. So that regret of having Viv do the descriptions of the books comes down to, wait, why did you say this was moist?
That's deeply upsetting.
Absolutely. And then Satchel sitting down and actually like taking in a bunch of books and reading is like, I still don't get why y'all want this, but maybe I should try one of the moist ones just to see. Ew.
I mean, he has a very bone dry sense of humor, pun intended.
Uh-huh. That is Tasha's hideous laughter levels of pun intended.
And then finally have, well, breathed Fern, surveying the interior with both brows raised.
Fork?
Me. Satchel drew back from her in alarm, and his eyes seemed to widen as the flames within them burned brighter. Viv leaned down near his skull and whispered, it's just a figure of speech, not a request.
Yeah. I think, like, I was going to say that, and then I'm like, wait a second. This is a notable quotable. Are you going to say it?
I did.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, that was mine. I thought that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I thought that was great.
So what did we learn this week?
All right, so I've already alluded to it a lot, talked about it. I am learning the first solo, the bigger solo for Sad But True on guitar. I haven't done a solo before. I have most definitely not done one this fast before. In fact, I haven't done anything this fast before. I haven't really done trills. I haven't really done a lot of things. I have 2 months, and there is a safety net. If I don't learn it, there will be a teenager who played it like a year ago who absolutely can definitely do it. One of our guitar teacher's other students. And much like when we were playing Nothing Else Matters, I also didn't do the solo on that. And we had an understudy, very smart kid, really sweet kid. Absolutely. Just, I am okay with having a safety net, but I still really want to try to get this one. And regardless of whether or not I perform it, I will have learned something. I've already learned something because I am already faster than I was 2 weeks ago when I started.
Yeah.
And in time, the right rhythm and everything for like 2 bars.
Which is 2 more bars than you had a week ago.
That's accurate. I also learned, thank you to our guitar teacher, that using Songster, the premium one, and like getting rid of a couple of subscription services that we don't care that much about, and then replacing it with something that is much more geared towards what we are actually doing. Really a good idea.
Indeed. With that, it's time for our thing of the week. So, folks, as we record this, it's the first week of January. And I don't think it's been any secret. I've made no secret of it, certainly, but I hate the month of January. I have for a long time. It's kind of the hangover of months. There's none of the revelry and anticipation that you see throughout November and December. And, there's a host of bad associations that go with the month as well.
Especially if you've experienced any loss around the holidays.
Yeah. So I think this is where comfort and coziness actually become truly important. Cozy isn't about the lack of hardship, but rather finding solace and refuge from that hardship. And this can take many forms. It can be spending time with friends and loved ones. It can be doing an activity that brings you pleasure. It can be surrounding yourself with pleasing sensations, whether that be in the form of taste, touch, sound, or smell. It can be taking some time to think about the things and people in your life that matter to you. And finally, it's in looking to perform acts of service for someone else. When we think about what is truly cozy, it's about building something in spite of hardship. And it's defined as much by that hardship as anything else. If it's just pure comfort and there's no hardship at all, that's not cozy, that's breezy. And that can be fine in its own right. But cozy is, I think, a little different. It's about finding the resilience in tough times. And it's also about building something of this time that isn't defined by any preordained public holiday or organized celebration. Like January coziness is not defined by commerce or capital, but rather through intentional acts unburdened by obligation. So, my thing of the week is just encouraging all of you listeners to look for a way to do something kind to yourself and to the people around you and build some of that coziness to help get through this kind of dreary blah month.
So when I think of cozy, and part of why, I'm going to bring this back to the crafting that I am doing right now, which is a lot of crochet work. For me, to add a little cozy into somebody's life would be to make them a scarf or some gloves, or even a little koozie or something that goes around a mug. Something with a soft texture, with squish, with warmth to it. Something that reflects that warmth back. Something that is not scratchy, not a texture kind of ick, but something that is smooth or fluffy or squishy. Something that you want to bury your face into. And so for me, one of those acts of service is to make something squishy, or squishy in that way that is yarn squishy, and not in that way that is wet squishy. That's a completely different thing. But this month is not my favorite month. It is usually defined by people depriving themselves of things. Because if you think about a lot of resolutions, it's I'm going to start eating more cleanly, or lose weight, or work out more, or take the time to do a bunch of stuff I don't want to do, or, a whole bunch of eat your vegetables. And I think, to piggyback on what you're saying, is I think that we need to take care of one another, really know what taking care of means for another person. For me, I have an allergy to onions. And one of the ways that Will takes care of me is helping me avoid eating onions while still getting to have things that are delightful and comforting and close to my heart. So sometimes it's a lot of effort, because it would be really easy to go buy guacamole and not as easy to make guacamole. But I like guacamole, and I like avocados, and I like the way that that feels, as long as I can breathe afterwards. And so those are things, having him make me food that is safe foods, or having him grocery shop and bring home things that we both know that I'm okay with. I'm not, for a resolution reason, but for a health reason, trying to figure out if cheese is doing really bad things to my system. And it just happens to be coinciding with right now. And I'm depriving myself of cheese and all things dairy. And Will hasn't complained at all about it. That's a thing that is a take care of me part. You love cheese. I love cheese, but you love cheese.
Yeah.
And choosing to be kind and understanding, and not or choosing to be kind and understanding when I say I want more yarn and I want to make a huge blanket. I think coziness can also be in those encouragement moments, in those maybe you will, maybe you won't, but I'm going to say that I'm happy if you try, because a lot of times that joy comes from trying and not from the finished piece.
And that trying is the only thing that makes the finished piece possible.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, like I say, it's looking for ways to take care of the people around you.
I'd also say that a lot of people around you are probably experiencing some really, really trash mental health states because that big ol' high from the holidays can just crash at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I remember working customer service pretty much from New Year's through March, really. It was brutal. Like, it was all hangover because you had people dealing with the financial ramifications from holiday overspending. You had people dealing with finally crashing from all of the stress that they'd put themselves through during that period of time when they didn't want to be a bummer to anybody. You have tax season coming up and people getting really antsy around that. Like, all of that stuff leads to just a lot of extra angst that people put themselves through, and
And others.
others. So when you are doing things to help build your resilience, you're also doing a kindness for other people.
I'd also say for me, it's easier to help other people build their resilience than it is for me to build my own. And so I think if we're encouraging anything, it's encouraging everyone to prop everyone else up, and somebody will get you.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's my thing of the week. With that, I'd like to thank you for potting with me.
Thank you for potting with me.
And thanks for listening to Tales from the Waystone. Join us next time as we continue the summer reading program series with chapters 31 through 36 of Bookshops and Bonedust.
Look at you being all on top of it.
I did my work yesterday.
We would like to thank our friend Shawnee Jang for our theme music.
And many thanks to Travis Baldree for creating this world that we're enjoying exploring.
Audio production, editing, occasional, I'm on Discord, come talk to me, courtesy of me, Phoenix McCullough.
And writing and project management, courtesy of me, Will McCullough.
If you would like to help support us, we do have the Patreon, no pressure, it's fine. Sometimes there's like early access that's now available for all paid patrons. Yeah, that's about it. And with that, here's to one more day above the roses.
To one more day above the roses.
Ding! And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
My voice sounded like a pinch harmonic.
Good for you.
Not for editing me.